Good morning, squad. Hope you're all doing well. Yeah. So, my last video, or let me start off. If you didn't know, which you definitely know if you know me in real life, and you were definitely able to tell from the last video that I made on the channel, I'm a young Christian boy. And so, for a little bit now, I've kind of wanted to make more Jesus-centered videos on this channel. That's kind of what I want this channel to be, like my music and my Jesus thoughts. So I've had a lot of Jesus thoughts recently, and I don't want to keep them to myself, and I want to share them. And so, if you're interested, cool. If you're not interested, also cool. And I was trying to figure out like when I would have time to make these videos. But I am now a college student, and it takes me an hour to drive to school every day. So that's a good hour, and back too. So it's a good hour where I can just set up this camera and talk about life. So this is GodTalks, Ep.1. Welcome, everybody. And so to start off, I kind of wanted to talk about my story and kind of how Jesus showed up in my life. Because I heard a really good quote recently. I can't remember. From a guy named Nicky Gumbel, who said, in order for people to care about what you know, they have to know that you care. So this is my story, the story of why I care. So, a little bit about me. I was born into a Christian family. I was the oldest kid. My parents both came from homes that were kind of broken spiritually, I guess. They're kind of the only one of their siblings that believe, and so when they got married, they were like, we gotta like lock in, you know. So they did lock in. Me and my siblings are all believers, but growing up, I didn't really care. It was just like a part of my life, you know. It was just like God is as real as the sky or the grass. And the sky or the grass doesn't really mean anything because it's just there, you know. There's nothing super significant about that. And then when I was like 5 years old, I like just got out of preschool. My teachers told my parents that I wouldn't be able to like sit in a classroom. I had really bad ADHD, which nobody told me, by the way. I had to figure that out in like 7th grade. I started noticing symptoms, and so they decided to homeschool me, which is a pretty sweet deal looking back, now that I have to get up every morning and drive an hour to school. The fact that I could just stay home and do my work was pretty nice. But I didn't really think of anything of it yet. I was just like, oh cool, I get to stay and play with my toys. This is awesome. And so growing up, I wasn't really sheltered like a lot of homeschool kids were. Like my parents weren't super strict. But I definitely did grow up in a bubble of sorts. Meaning like everyone in my life was a Christian or like knew about God in like some capacity. Like I had two main groups of friends. They were my church friends and my homeschool friends, which I had homeschool friends. The thing I did is called a co-op, meaning for us it looked like one day of real school, and then like all the other days our homework due on that one day of school. So like I had a class and classmates and stuff like that. Sorry. So I wasn't like antisocial or anything. but again, like, it was still a bubble in that, like, everyone was on the same page of, like, how they see the world and, like, how the world works. And so I was just kind of free to be who I was. Like, I was a very crazy, kooky kid. I mean, if you just look back on, like, my old videos, you can see that. Like, that's kind of how I was, like, my whole life. And I feel at times I was bothersome, but that's kind of the point, is that, you know, I wasn't really trying to be. That's just who I was, and I was just free to be who I was because no one was telling me otherwise, because everyone around me was just, like, super, like, positive and supporting. And so I could just be that wacky guy, free of judgment. And so that's how I rolled up until 6th grade, where I joined this thing called Wildlife, which is kind of hard to describe. So Wildlife is part of Young Life, which is like a global ministry meaning, like, what is a ministry? Kind of a way, organized way one of the, like, avenues that, like, Christians spread the gospel meaning, like, the, like, news about Jesus. So, like, church, like, the different churches are kind of like different ministries. I'm a big fan of Bryce Crawford. Bryce Crawford has a ministry. Have you ever heard of Alpha? That's a ministry. So Young Life is a ministry that specifies in sharing news of Jesus with, like, adolescents. So, like, middle school, high school, college. So what I didn't know is that, like, everyone in my church was, like, involved in Young Life or Wildlife some way. So Wildlife is the middle school version. So 6th grade, my mom was like, "You're gonna go to this thing on Friday. This it's like a Christian something," and I was like, "That sounds awful. I do not want to go to that." So I went with my best friend at the time, Caleb, who you guys will probably remember from my old videos. We rolled up together. And we were just, like, our typical clown selves. There was this one time on the first day, I, like, ran across the entire room and, like, body slammed on the wall. That's the energy I brought to the function. And so that was interesting. But I noticed something that night, is that, like, the other kids weren't really like us. So, like, the difference between, like, Young Life, Wildlife, and, like, a normal, like, youth group is that it's, like, outreach, meaning, like, it's for the kids who, like, don't believe. So, like, I expected to go into this, everyone's, like, a pristine, like, God-loving poster child. But no, actually most of the kids, like, didn't even know Jesus, which was fine. But it was weird for me because it was like I was stepping out of my bubble, you know? And I noticed that the other kids weren't really like me. Like us, like me and Caleb, because we were similar. But I saw that and I was like, oh, they're not like me. You know? So that, I wasn't only different from them in, like, the way I, like, spoke and, like, my energy and stuff. Like, I was also, like, probably a head taller than all the other 6th graders. More than that. So I stuck out like a sore thumb, basically. And that didn't feel great. And it was, like, the first time in my life I kind of felt like all eyes were on me, which was not a great feeling at all. So then, going into the next couple months, I kind of subdued myself, like that. that old kid, you know, subdued it. And like I changed the way I was dressing. Like I was exclusively like a shorts and t-shirt kid, and then I became exclusively pants and sweaters. And so that was going on, and I started talking less. I became more quiet. I was just so like self-conscious. Like I felt like I had all eyes on me, and I didn't really want people to see me as that like annoying little kid, you know. And so then it came to like kind of a culmination during my first wildlife winter weekend, which we just go to Camp Upstate for the weekend. And I had two other friends in wildlife that I kind of saw as like more mature and like kind of like the cool kids that I knew from church. And so I like wanted to kind of like hang around them during the weekend and kind of like, I don't know, it's bad, but like I guess distance myself from like my other friends who like weren't as mature, which was a horrible thing to do. I'm not saying that was good at all, but that was just like my mindset, is that I just wanted to like get in with like the cool crowd. You know, I wanted to like be accepted and stuff. And then when we got to winter weekend, I realized that my more mature friends had dumped something pretty cool. They made more friends. And instead of seeing that and being like, oh, that's so awesome, good for them, I should also make more friends, I thought, oh no, this is terrible. I'm being left behind, you know? So I got really mopey and dumb that weekend. And one of those friends actually noticed and like made an effort to like include me and stuff. And she's the GOAT. She's probably not watching this, but if you are, you know who you are. So thank you. But even despite that, I kind of left that weekend feeling different. And I kind of had, there's a little voice in my head, or a little seed that was planted that weekend that was just like saying like, they hate you, you know? You're too big, you're too ugly, you're too loud, you're too annoying. Like, why would anyone talk to you? And I was like, ooh, I hate that. That's awful. And so, going home, I kind of had a new mission. And it was mission, get everybody to like me all the time, always, without exception. So, that's kind of what I became. I changed everything about myself, like, more than I already was. I spent many nights and days shedding tears because it just felt like every time I talked to someone, it was just like a chore for them to talk to me, you know? And I just wanted to like prove to everybody, specifically in like young life and church and whatever, that I wasn't like, I'm not this like annoying kid, you know? Like I'm so much more than that. Like I can be liked, you know? So I just kept, you know, trying to blend in and like morph to what people like. And that was my life for a while. And eventually I did, you know, definitely get the approval of the people I was seeking approval from. Young life, wildlife, whatever. But the problem is there was always one more person. Like, it was never enough. Like, no matter how many people were, I was like, all right, I know we're friends, I know they like me. There was still always doubt, and there was still always one more person. You know, it was an uphill, never-ending battle. And this affected a lot of aspects in my life. one thing that you'll find, if anyone else is a chronic people pleaser, one thing that you'll find is if you try to be the person that everybody likes, you discover that different people like different things. So you kind of have to become different people in order to meet the expectations of the person people want you to be. So I kind of started to lose who I was. Like, I had so many different masks. I had, the mask I would wear with my town friends who were not Christian, the mask I would wear in Young Life Wildlife, the mask I would wear in church, the mask I would wear around my homeschool friends. Like, I would be one person one day and then another day, or another person the next. And it was exhausting. And I just started to lose who I was. It affected my relationship with my brother, because I kind of treated him the same way that I thought, I perceived that I was being treated, particularly with my friends. Like, I had friends who would pick on me a lot, a couple for different reasons, and I was a pretty easy target. I was like the tall, lanky guy, and like I was a little chubbier back in the day, and being homeschooled and being a church kid, like there was a lot of ammo, and there were some people that took advantage of that, and some of those people cared about me a lot, and it was just kind of a thing of like they were just joking around. But I didn't really know how to take it. I didn't know how to handle it, because every negative word that they would say meant something to me, because I believed it. No, I believed I was ugly. I believed that it was bad that I was homeschooled. I believed that it was weird to be a church kid, what have you. And so it got to the point, this is like far to like the end of my journey. Sophomore year was one of the worst years of my life, because it was particularly one of my friends. Like, I would hear his voice in my head when I was just like trying to do homework, that like, you're not doing enough, like you don't deserve to be worn out, stuff like that. Like, I could just like feel his judgment, and I talked to him about it a couple times, and the weird thing is that he did change, and he did apologize, and he did like change from being that person. But despite that, I still heard his voice in my head telling me that I wasn't enough. The traffic is starting. We're gonna be here a while, guys. So yeah, I couldn't do any work. Couldn't do any of my schoolwork. I just heard his voice in my head, and I would listen to it. And I kind of started to think, like, maybe it's not his voice, because he doesn't even think those things about me anymore, and he's apologized and stuff like that, but I still feel it. I still feel it. And across my journey, I was never suicidal, but I definitely related to the notion of, like, people would have a better time if I wasn't here. Like, I'm just a bother to the people around me, and they would, if I disappeared tomorrow, they'd be fine. Some would even be thankful. That's kind of what was going on in my head, and I couldn't live that way. Something had to change, and I just didn't know what to do until my sophomore year, at Young Life camp. So, as well as like winter weekends, we also go to camp in the summer. And at the end of the week, there's like a time that they give us to like go be silent and like reflect like on the week. It's kind of supposed to be like a prayer time of sorts. And for me, like, I'd done this before, you know. This is like my 8th Wildlife Young Life anything. I'd prayed before, you know, it was like no big deal. But like I tried to like grasp onto something, anything in my head, and I just couldn't. Like my head was just like a whirlwind of whatever. So I found a nice tree to sit against, and I was like kind of freaking out, like I can't hear anything. Like my head is so like consumed right now. And then like one thought just like quieted them all, and it said, "Why do you hate yourself?" I was like, "What?" I don't hate myself. Other people hate myself. Like, why would I hate myself? Like, I'm so cool. Like I changed my appearance to like cool. Like I was the youngest person on the worship team. Like I'm the youngest wildlife leader in our area. Like I got all this stuff going on. Like why would I hate myself? And then the voice responded. He was like, "No, you do hate yourself, because everything you've done since the 6th grade has just been in a desperate attempt to prove yourself to other people. I love you. Isn't that what matters?" And I was just like, dang, that voice is my voice. You know, that voice in my head that like disguised itself as my friend or like my other friends. And like in past periods of my life, like even my young life leaders, it was my voice the whole time. Like I was telling myself, "You're not good enough. You're ugly." You know, fill in the blank. Like that was me. That wasn't anybody else. And I was just like, wow, like I've been treating myself so horribly. Like I kind of saw it as like I was just berating that little kid who was just trying his best to appease me, and nothing he did like cut it. And so after that day, I was like, I got to learn to love myself, not because of anything I did, but because the guy who created me loved me. And that was like the first time I ever prayed in like, and it wasn't like an audible voice, but like in my spirit that like I heard God, and I'm convinced that was God. That was the first time that ever happened to me, and that's when I feel like my faith, I had been like practicing outwardly, but I still like had imposter syndrome all the time. Like Jesus like meant something, but like I still didn't really feel it. I still didn't really know how to explain it. Until that moment where God like stepped in and was like, this is what's up. You know, it's about me. It's not about other people. And so, you know, after that day, everything changed. You know, I forgave my friend and anyone else who would ever, you know, made me feel the way that I did. I realized that the only reason someone would ever act out like that is because they were feeling the same thing. You know, once you get on the other side of this transformation, you realize that it's such a self-worth is such a struggle that everybody deals with, but no one talks about. You know, and now that I can attribute my issues to a lack of, you know, proper identity, I realize that it's such a prominent thing that everybody goes through. And I just cared so much less, and I did the cool things that I did for God and not for other people. So yeah, and then you know what God had me do after that? kind of a crazy plot twist if you know me in real life. because I haven't really shared this. He sent me to school. I had been homeschooled my whole life. And before camp, I was considering, like, maybe I want to do public school, and then after, I was like, I have to. And it's so that I could share this story. And if you're one of my friends from public school watching this, surprise. Yeah, I kind of, I guess gave a lot of different reasons for why I went to public school. Or I just was like, I feel like it was time, or like homeschool wasn't really working for me anymore. And it wasn't. But the real reason is that, like, Jesus showed up in my life, and he was like, you can't keep this to yourself. You got to get out there. You got to share this. And so that's kind of why I'm doing these, because I did share a lot in school. I did have a lot of cool encounters. But I'm not there anymore, and I have so much left to say. And so, cap it off, why I do what I do. Now I'm a wildlife leader, or at least I used to be, because there's not really, wildlife currently, because there's not really other leaders. But when I first started, they have these different, like, questionnaires of, like, why do you want to become a leader? And I used to say I just wanted to give kids the same, I wanted to give kids the same experience that I had in middle school. I want to get back to that. That's kind of baloney, because I had a terrible experience in middle school. Like, it was so bad. Now, I do what I do because I don't want anybody to feel that same pain that I felt. Whether you're a kid or not. Because here's the thing. With Jesus, I don't have all the facts. I'm not like a scholar. I can't prove to you, like, all the manuscripts of why Jesus existed, or like why he rose, or whatever. I don't know a ton about the Dead Sea Scrolls. Like, I don't have that. What I do know is pain. And what I have is a changed life that, doesn't writhe in pain anymore. And so that's what I want to share. So yeah. Thank you for listening. I feel like I had another thing to say. But yeah, that's my story to kind of start off this new series. Next time, I think we're going to talk about Jesus' story. Because I talked about it a little in my last video, but I recognize that some people may be unfamiliar, so I kind of want to talk about it. So yeah, that's what's up. Music coming soon, and I will see you guys later.